York Times story about the 2020 campaign has prompted an unusually harsh denunciation from Mike Pence. The vice president called the piece, quote, disgraceful and offensive to me, my family, and our entire team. The allegations in the article are categorically false and represent just the latest attempt by the media to divide this administration. What the paper said was that the Veep created a political action committee, hired a top operative, and that one of his aides said in a meeting that the Pence team wants to be prepared in case there is an opening in 2020. Joining us now here in Los Angeles, Gina Loudon, host of America Trends with Dr. Gina on the U2 America Network, and in New York, Kathy Yarou, publisher of Catalina Magazine and a former editor at the Washington Post magazine. Gina, what do you make of Mike Pence pushing back so hard in such personal terms against this New York Times piece that includes him in the maneuvering for 2020?
Well, I think, he's probably asking the question of if he were not doing those things, would the media be criticizing him for not doing them, saying maybe he's not fully on board with the conservative agenda, or just stirring enmity in some other way? I think that's the problem, is that there has become such a chasm between conservatives in general and the media at this point that there is just a distrust overall. So everything the media says is suspect to someone like Vice President Mike Pence.
Kathy, wouldn't any vice president keep his options open? What if Trump doesn't run? What if he has health problems? The story doesn't say that Mike Pence is going to challenge Trump, which would be ludicrous.
Right. The story went with facts. It wasn't, for him to say it was offensive, it wasn't offensive. It went with facts. He did start a political action committee. He is raising money. He did hire a chief of staff that is known to be a campaign guy. So his actions are showing that he may be getting ready to run for 2020, and it would be irresponsible for the New York Times to not run a story like this. So it makes sense that he's upset, but maybe it's because it's the truth.
On the other hand, Gina, let me quote from the story. Mr. Pence has made no overt efforts to separate himself from the beleaguered president. He has kept up his relentless public praise, and even in private is careful to bow to the president. But I'm told that Mike Pence was truly offended and wanted to knock this down.
Yeah, and I think just going with the presumption that this president is weak is, first of all, a lot of conservatives are going to see that as a media bias in and of itself. Some would say it would be irresponsible of the vice president not to be prepared to be president. He is, after all, the next in line. So for any vice president in history to not be prepared, some people would say that it would be irresponsible for him not to be. So then when the media tries to make a story out of this, other than just reporting it, but reporting it with a little jab, like, is there some problem there? That's what the consumers of media may have a problem with.
In fairness to the Times, Kathy, Pence wasn't even the top of the piece. It was about Tom Cotton, Ben Sasse, and John Kasich. But the Pence camp believes that such key facts were left out as a former governor, he needed a federal PAC just to pay for his travel. And at the first $1 million fundraiser for this political action committee he formed, he was introduced by Ivanka Trump. So it wasn't, that wasn't mentioned.
Well, the piece, it wasn't about him, so maybe that's why they didn't mention those things. They were saying that Republicans are coming up with a plan B for 2020, and that is the responsible thing to do, given Trump's numbers right now. They're in the 30s. So 30%. So yes, Trump might be the only person who thinks he can win in 2020. So the New York Times is simply saying that Republicans are looking for a plan B, and Pence happens to be one of them. So if they didn't include every detail about Pence's life, it's because, as you said, the piece wasn't just about Vice President Pence. The piece, I think, was responsible and balanced.
You couldn't resist that political shot.